Daffy is hilarious in his scene with the train. Porky is also hilarious. And the ending was super cool where we got to see one half of the Justice League for some reason. I don't know why it's not all of them. But also, even though it was amazing to see the 2000s version of the Justice League that we grew up with in the good old days of Cartoon Network, I just was disappointed that all they did was stand there. Really? And they don't even say anything either. They don't speak a single word. Come on, guys. Come on. Have them talk at least. And why is it only half of them? There should be a little more of them in the film if they're going to be on DC World. Their cameo is just way too short. Anyway, moving on. So now we know the montage. That's amazing. Well, not amazing, but it's good. It's cool. They go to all the different planets. It's fitting, I think, where certain characters belong in certain worlds, especially Roadrunner and Coyote on the Mad Max planet or whatever. It was awesome to see Elmer Fudd and Sylvester in the Austin planet. And one of the greatest scenes in the movie, also, Granny and Speedy in The Matrix. It was an awesome pairing. They wanted Speedy to have more of a role in the film, and he does. Speedy talks and does more in this movie than he does in the original Space Jam. And Speedy even plays on the team in this movie. Awesome. So, comparing both films, Speedy is done better in Space Jam 2 than the first one. That's something. I think they paired Granny and Speedy together because they're both underrated Looney Tunes characters, so they kind of pair well together. Speedy's speed, he is able to use that to his advantage in the Matrix world, where no one can stop him. Granny's skills, Matrix skills, she learns. She later applies it in the movie to defeat Kronos. Bugs and LeBron show up. You know, what I miss. Hi, Granny. He's Speedy. And I think it's awesome they made action figures for LeBron and Bugs' outfits from the movie. I know this has nothing to do with the movie, I know. But I still think it's cool to collect them. Like, I have Bugs Bunny as Batman. Just stuff like that I think is awesome. Next, we come to a scene with Al G and Dom. They're playing a game together, they're talking, and this is where the film decides to explain how the Goon Squad were created. It's a scene they show where it takes place in the past, pretty much before all the events in the film take place. You see Dom with the 5 NBA players of today that they chose to be in the film, and I think they have pretty cool picks they have to play the Goons in the film. And I think the scene they had together, they had a little bit of chemistry and they were kind of fun to see them all interact with each other, but it was super brief, and I really feel like this scene should have been earlier in the film. If you look at the deleted scenes, there's a little more footage, actually, of that scene where Dom meets them all and films them with his phone. I don't know why those were removed from the movie. They screwed up a little bit with the Goons in this film, and we'll get more into it as the film progresses, but looking at this, analyzing this scene where you see the players who become the Goons, we really don't get to spend, we barely get to spend any time with them, like one little scene. Maybe they are funny together, but we don't get to spend enough time with them to know if they're funny on screen together, like making jokes with one another. Whereas in the original, the 5 players that were the Nerdlucks chose to be, and they became the MonSTARs, those 5 players had so much screen time in the original, they had so much space to make all these jokes, and they were all really funny and well written. We just got to see them more in the original. Whereas in this movie, it's like super quick, like just blitz by them, and I think it's a mistake. Now, you don't want it to be exactly like the original movie, so you still could have had the 5 players interacting with each other, just maybe not in the same way they did it in the original, but it still should have happened. Because I think the Goon Squad are amazing. I think they're super cool. We'll talk more about them later. But I just will quickly say that I think the Goons should have been more in the movie. Like, the first time they appear, it's only when, like, before they do the final game. That's bullshit. And it wasn't terrible, really. It wasn't, like, super bad or whatever. But the Goons should have appeared, like, in the middle of the film, and they could have just talked to Dom or something, or sent a message to the Looney Tunes that the Goons are coming, or like we should have got to see more footage of the Goons in the movie before the game. Like, they did such an excellent job with building up the MonSTARs in the original Space Jam, where you got to see all these scenes with the MonSTARs and the Looney Tunes together before the final game. And it was amazing, the storytelling, and you got to know the MonSTARs before the big game. So much so that even though they were villains, you loved the MonSTARS because you got to see all their chemistry together. And they were funny. Even though you want the Toons to win the final game, when you get to the final game, the MonSTARS are now lovable to the audience. So now some people would like to root for the MonSTARS in the final game because we got to see them make jokes, be funny, interact with one another. We didn't get to have that with the Goons. And it's not that the Goons aren't funny. Some of their designs are funny, and I think they have really great designs, and they have good personalities. But we did not get to see them joke around with each other and be charming and all that stuff like earlier in the film. Having them only appear like just before the final game, it's kind of unacceptable. But other than that stuff, it's just like, I still think they did a great job with the Goons when they were in the movie, but they definitely, absolutely should have been throughout the film. At least one or two scenes before the final game. And they should be at least mentioned. Like, they're really not mentioned, really. Like once, maybe. And that's bullshit. Now, this film is trying to balance a lot of things, so I'm trying to give it some credit where they may have felt like they didn't have quite enough time to do this idea of having the Goons show up more in the film. Because it seems like so much screen time is dedicated to the conflict of Dom, LeBron, and involving Al G, with these like scenes, these long dialogue scenes where they're talking about their feelings and stuff like that. I think that's okay, but we do get the message of what they're going for, the lesson. We already know the lesson before the film ends, right? I think they gave the exposition to LeBron and Dom's relationship. I think they went a little too long with it. We didn't have to have every single scene, all three of them together and stuff, re-explaining and re-talking about their feelings and all that stuff. We get it. It's just, they dedicated a little too much of that, whereas, some of that stuff could have been cut down, and then we could have gotten more of the Goons. We could have gotten to see more Looney Tunes on other planets that got rescued and stuff like that. It just would have given the film more room for more fun stuff. Like, this film is not supposed to be The Lesson of Father and Son, the movie starring the Looney Tunes. No, this is a Space Jam movie. And the original Space Jam had lessons in it also. But the lessons in the original Space Jam really were not the meat and potatoes of the film. The meat and potatoes of the original Space Jam were the special effects, the humor, the imagination, all that stuff. It was the spectacle of it all, not the big lessons and all that stuff. And it's cool that's there. But yeah, anyway, you get my point.